Okay. Hello India. Welcome to Monash University in Caulfield. My name is Jeff Janet. I'm the Program Director for the Master of Design. And with me, I have, on this side of me, I have Naohiro Hayakawa, who is an academic who specializes in virtual reality and augmented reality. And on the other side of me, I have Smriti. And Smriti is a student studying Master of Design. So what the format that this presentation will take today is that we're going to tell you a little bit about our program here, and we're also going to talk about the future of design and mainly immersive technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality. And then also Smriti will talk about her student experience and will tell you about what goes on in the life of the student and the types of projects she does and how she engages with her lecturers. So what we'll do is we'll move on now, and I'll just show you a few images of what the Caulfield campus looks like when there's certain activities. We have a nice green area where sometimes we have outdoor activities. We'll have a crowd around with this particular event, like Open Day. This is our art gallery. We'll just make this. Sorry, we'll just make the slides a little bit bigger for you. Hopefully, everybody can see that. So over here we have our art gallery. This is a Monash University art gallery, and it's quite a beautiful picture. It's a night scene of that. We have a lot of activities on campus. We have showcases. We have student award nights where we present student work. So it's a very vibrant and interactive community with people from all over the world. That's just a typical sort of exhibition. Just what the student labs look like. We have PCs and we have Macintoshes for all students to work on. This is a typical studio environment. You can see the learning spaces are very, very casual. And they're not very, very formal, but everybody's engaged and sitting around and working on different things, and then having group discussions. And you'll find that it's really enjoyable. There's a very collegiate atmosphere. In many ways, the directors, the lecturers often act as colleagues. They act as art directors or creative directors, and they work hand in hand with the students. So that's just a pic of interactive technologies. We do a lot of interactive technologies. What I'm going to talk about now briefly is what I see as the future of design, mainly in relationship to, I guess, the course that we offer here, which is the Master of Design program. It's a very, very big topic, the future of design, and I guess what I'm going to really talk about is the near future. I'm talking about like a five years. I'm not talking about 2050 or anything like that. So everything that we focus on these days is really human-centered. It's about the human condition, and it's all about people and inclusive design, ethical design, and sustainable design. Always considering your target audience and other stakeholders. Whoops, jumping ahead. There are really 5 areas that I suppose I'd like to talk about, and these 5 areas are certainly covered in all the courses in our Department of Design at Monash University. And a big one is design thinking And you'll find that design thinking is now not limited only to the area of design. Corporations are incorporating design thinking into their corporate structures, because this is a way of bringing creativity into all sorts of industries, into government as well. So it's very, very, very good to be in the design industry at this point, because your design thinking approaches as a designer will be very, 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 very valued. Also, the next point that I'll go briefly over is obviously the Internet of Things, IoT. That connectivity, we're connected all over to many, many different things. Cities are connected. As you know, we have our map systems, we have Google Maps, we have Waze, we have all of these apps, and you know, our fridges are connected, and more and more every object around us is likely to be connected to the internet. And we really take this very seriously, and we think carefully about that when we're doing our designs. And then connected to that is artificial intelligence and robotics. We're all quite familiar with this on our websites now, where we have chatbots, where we have this computer person talking to us. Typical examples are Siri on the iPhone and Alexa, and as well as you know, chatting to anybody, even when you want to buy something online at a commercial website. Another big area that we like to focus on is brand design, and also the future of brand design is we have a lot of visual clutter, and we have a lot of things being pushed to us, whether we're on social media or any other media, and it's getting very, very busy. So I think in many ways brand design is going to have to be a lot more emotive and expressive, and go a little bit back to the pre-mobile era, but at the same time embracing technology, but finding simpler ways to connect to people, and more direct ways. And then, of course, another area is being healthy in health design. Now, we're all familiar with the wonderful technology that surgeons can use, for instance, robotic surgery, and also when we have these incredible 3D scanners in hospitals. But there's also the emotional and mental health and well-being. And I think designers are going to will be increasingly playing a big part in that. So, I mean, this is a topic that you could go on forever, but I think we're quite limited for time, and we want to give you time for questions. So I'll move a bit forward now, and I'll just give you an overview of the Master of Design. Now, a good thing about the Master of Design is that you could actually be from any discipline studying a bachelor, or you could have in fact had a design degree behind you. So it caters for both. So in some ways it's a conversion degree. For example, if you've studied education before, or if you've studied IT, or even if you've studied law, and you've always been creative, you could very well do a Master of Design, because increasingly designers are becoming creative organizers because of all of the technology that we can automatically download. Not technology, I mean assets, like 3D assets, pictures, video. So a little bit more about the degree. Now, I want to very specifically say it's not an IT degree. So we don't teach you just how to code. In fact, coding is a very, very small part. We teach more about how to solve design problems, and how to go through the design process, and how we involve all the stakeholders in the process, the client, as well as the target audience. We consult with them. It's a consultative process. But that doesn't mean we don't have IT in it. In fact, we embrace technology, and especially we embrace art and design as well. So all of these things working together are part and parcel of our course. So moving on, what the titles you might get when you leave this course, and you might be titled an experienced designer, a multimedia designer, an interactive designer, digital media designer, UX UI designer, that's user experience and user interface designer. And of course, graphic design fits into all of these categories in some way, traditional graphic design, because things always have to look good. There's always has to be an aesthetic component that really, really communicates well with your audience. And then, of course, design strategists and design consultants. This is where design thinking comes in a big way. So you get to choose a specialization in Master of Design after the first semester. So you can either focus on interaction design, which, interaction design, I'll just go through all three of them first. Interaction design, multimedia design, and collaborative design. Now, they all share a lot in common. It's the differences are when it comes to emphasis. So in interaction design, you might do more web and app design and UX and UI. In multimedia design, you'll focus more on motion media design. That's things that move, like animation, storyboarding, 360 video. All the time we're involving virtual reality and augmented reality in both specializations. But collaborative design is one of the most interesting areas. This is a holistic design approach where people could become design consultants or design strategists or design researchers. And often the people that choose collaborative design are those that have studied design quite extensively before, and they're sort of trying to move into a design management area, sort of a higher area of design. So these are just briefly some of the type of projects you might work on. Interaction design, you could work on wearable technologies, projects on wearable technologies. Again, the health industry, educational toys even, and of course, interactive experiences using virtual reality and augmented reality. With multimedia design, there could be more video and motion graphic production, animation, branding, and user interface and user experience design. User experience design and user interface design are part of all the specializations in one form or another. And then collaborative design is quite often the big picture stuff. And it could include things like service design as well, interiors, how people move through spaces. It's a whole big picture view of things. Now what I'd like to do is pass on to my colleague, Naohiro Hayakawa. I'll just try and enlarge the picture for you so you can say hello to Nao with
Hi,
his
everyone.
headgear.
4:15, guys.
Yep. So, yeah.
So, hi, everyone. So I'd like to explain about VR, AR, and MR. Some of you might heard about these technologies already. So this is actually VR headset. So you simply wear it and you can see like here. So VR tends to be about like another world. So you can be someone's perspective, or you can see different views, like in a total different view, like you can go to space or you can go back to time and stuff. So that stands for virtual reality. And AR is, on the contrary, is about more like extension of your real world. So let's say we have a nice table here, like white table here. So you like to know like where it comes from, or what it's made of, or what the size of this, then you can see all the information there. That's AR. And MR is more like a new media, but it stands for mixed reality, and it's basically a mashup of like different technologies like VR, AR, or even like haptics. So you can sort of like combine like your own world and another world. So it's kind of close to AR, but it's a bit more about AR. So I think a good example of this is Microsoft HoloLens. So if you put HoloLens, then you can see information on what you're seeing there, but at the same time, you can interact with the information and change the shape, or you can get more information from one part. So that's where UI and UX comes in too. So 21st century is often regarded as the century of 3D. So we started from 2D image from the end of 19th century, and now we are coming to the era of 3D. So things are becoming more 3D, and world is more replicated in digital world. So that's where we are at now. So as a designer, what's important here is you have to utilize those technologies and what you can actually bring with those. That's what matters. So you have to think about technology itself, but also those technologies are not complete. So you always have downsides like motion sickness, some problem with resolution. So you have to minimize those downsides and also maximize what it's capable. I can't go to it yet. So this is an example I did at Monash University with students here. So we worked closely with psychology department, and we did a project using VR system. So our goal was to sort of showcase like the people from different countries and the differences there among those people. One from Japan, one from India, one from Australia. So they behave a bit differently based on how they respond and stuff. So the students also encountered a couple of problems here. So three things I mentioned about here are one is like it had to be immersive, and it had to be easy to navigate, and it had to be accurate based on research. So whenever the user interacts with those systems, it needs to be very immersive so that they can engage more and they can try to understand better with what's happening there. And when it comes to navigation, you have to think about like the best way to navigate the user. That includes UI and user experience. I tend to call it user flow. So the user can easily understand what's happening in timeline and what they should interact with. So the buttons, all those like user UI system here. So the placement, the size, color, and also amount of information, they all matter here. And if you don't do it properly, then it tends to create a lot of motion sickness in VR. And that was part of the problem we encountered here. And the last one, obviously, like we worked with psychology department. So all those information had to be accurate based on the research. So whenever you work on as a designer, then you definitely do a lot of research, intensive research here, and you have to put it into practice. The last thing I like to mention about here is there's actually a journal published from MIT Media Lab. It's called Journal of Design and Science. And design fits between engineering and art. So what it means is engineering creates any types of technologies, machinery, what we can actually utilize in daily life. But at the same time, as a designer, you have to use those things and actually solve any type of problems here. And also, like, it needs to be artistic. So humans sort of like, because we have a lot of technologies, a lot of digital media these days, and we also encounter issues with like how humans feel comfortable with those technologies. Otherwise, people don't use it. So that's where we at now. So that's from me.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go on to Smriti, who's going to talk about her student experience in the Master of Design.
So, well, I'm a final semester student in the Master of Design, and my experience has been quite intensive, very challenging, but I was given the opportunity to work on areas of design that I like, you know, in research and human-centered design. And throughout the program, we were pushed and encouraged to explore new innovative solutions and explore new technologies. We were taught skills like design thinking, research. We learned softwares like all the Adobe softwares, Cinema 4D, etc. You also have the choice to choose from electives which can complement your specialization. And I chose filmmaking, which was great for me because I'm a multimedia student. I think the biggest takeaway for me from the Master of Design program was that I did not come from a design background. And I was able to come into this course, really learn and thrive, and explore and experiment on areas of design that I was interested in. You know, we heard Jeff mention so many different areas that you, as a designer, can be a part of, like UI/UX, animation, interaction, etc. So this program gives you that freedom to explore what you like, and at the end of 2 years, produce this great portfolio of projects that you have worked on based on your interests, projects that you're proud of. An example would be a recent project that we worked on last semester, which gave us an opportunity to work with the industry. We worked with a real world client, a hospital, where we designed an immersive waiting room experience for them, for the patients waiting in the hospital. We were a group of 8 students who each brought their own skills to the table. And it was a great experience because we learned from each other. These were students with their own cultural and professional backgrounds, and working in a team was great. We did extensive research, worked on softwares like After Effects and Cinema 4D to develop our prototypes and animations, and we collaborated as a team to deliver the design solution to the client. We worked with our professors and researchers from the design department, who were so great. They were encouraging, they were so friendly, and that made working on the project much easier. We learned so much, working with each other. In fact, Jeff was our mentor, and he was such a great academic to work with. You can see we had a lot of fun working on the project with him. And I think what was important was that this program gives you all the skills necessary to really thrive in the industry, and it's up to the student to use the expertise and knowledge from the teachers to work in any industry, any avenue that you want, as the example given above. That's from me and my experience as a student in this course.
Yeah. So thank you, Smriti. I think we're almost at the point now where we're gonna open it to questions for you. But I'd just like to reiterate what Smriti says, that you don't necessarily have to have a design background to come into this course. In fact, you'll find a lot of design companies these days really like to involve people who've been in other disciplines, because collaboration design and co-design and participatory design are really part of the modern design landscape, that people from different disciplines working together with a common goal to design either a good product or a good experience. So obviously you have to be interested in creative practice. You have to have a lot of passion for being innovative. Obviously we look forward to having some applicants from India, and also we look forward to answering your questions about now. Thank you.
While we're waiting, other programs at Monash, can a person studying a management degree apply for a master's?
Yes, absolutely. A person who's studying a management degree can apply for the master's program. I mean, you'd obviously need to first have a bachelor's degree, or in order to get into a master's program. But if you were finishing your master's degree, you could your management degree, you could certainly apply, and you'd be the chances are you would be accepted on the basis of your bachelor's degree. If you have studied design before, you can also apply for credit, because if you've got a 3 or a 4-year design degree or similar, you could get credit for the first semester of study, which means you'd only need to do 1.5 years or 3 semesters of study. But this is an option. If you'd like to study for the full 2 years, that's also fine. It's a different experience. So that was the answer to a cognate degree. I mean, just to explain for some people who are confused, a cognate degree is a degree already in design. A non-cognate degree is somebody who studied another discipline other than design. So we accept from both. And as I'll just reiterate that if you already have a degree in design, your master's could potentially be shorter. But if you don't have a degree in design, then you need to do the full 2-year program. Are there any more questions that anyone would like to ask?
We've got one here. What are the entry requirements for the program?
Okay. The entry requirements for the master design is nothing other than a bachelor degree, but the bachelor degree should be from a recognized institution by Monash University. And for the most part, most major universities are recognized by Monash, certainly are.
And for bachelor degrees, A-levels, IB, that kind of thing.
So you'd need your A-levels, and international baccalaureate is also acceptable. Bachelor, yeah.
Maybe Smriti can answer that one. How would course help me to grow? No experience.
Yeah.
Well, I think the best, there was a question, how will this course help me to grow? And I think because you get to meet people, students from different cultures, backgrounds, you get to interact with different professors, you work on industry projects. I think it gives you so much exposure. It opens you to a design industry that is different from the design industry in India. So you have a very global, international perspective of what design works. And I think that is one of the most essential parts that's going to help you grow, develop as a designer.
I see there's another question. It was, is a portfolio required? That's a good question. If you've already studied a design degree and you want to get credit, we do normally expect to see a portfolio. But, you know, generally speaking, it goes through pretty smoothly, because if a person studied design for 3 or 4 years, they certainly have enough of a background to get the credit. So for the most part, the credit is granted, but we do need the folio, which is normally a simple PDF file with 15 images or maybe links to a website or a video or something like that.
But majority do not.
For the most part, you certainly don't need a folio. If you've just got a bachelor's degree in any discipline, you don't need a folio, because in some ways this is a conversion degree. You've studied something else and now you think you'd really want to do design. So you're putting design on top of the discipline that you have already. And in fact, that adds a lot of value to your skills as a designer. So there was one other question: that is a bachelor's degree completion compulsory? Yes, it is, absolutely. You have to have a bachelor's degree. Job opportunities. Well, that's up to you. There obviously, you have to remember, globally there are a lot of job opportunities, especially in the field of design strategy and design thinking, user experience design, and user interface design, because that's all over the place at the moment. Certainly design, the demand for designers all over the world is generally increasing, because designers don't only work in design studios or design agencies. They also work for big corporations and smaller companies now, with people having their own websites or their own social media programs. They often need designers to make things look good. Any scholarships for the course is another question. I think for that, it's best to look at the Monash website, because there are scholarships available, but bear in mind it's
a competitive process.
Yeah, it's very, very competitive. It's not automatic.
Correct. For the university-wide scholarships,
yeah,
they're not automatic. They're competitive, but the faculty also has a range of study grants that are tuition fee discounts.
Yeah, there are a range of study grants as well that will give you some sort of a tuition fee discount, but there's an application process and the website. What kind of challenges a student can face during the course? I think maybe Smriti would be a good one to answer that.
Well, I think I would start by saying that's very subjective, but I think one of the few challenges you might face is communication can be a barrier. You are in a new place, you have to get adjusted to a new way of learning, a new way of studying. You know, the university functions differently from the way it functions in India, and just getting used to the way things function here. So I think those are the challenges that you can face as a student during the course. But the faculty is so friendly. You always have support on campus. The student experience is great. So I think definitely while you might have faced some challenges in the first few weeks or months, you are definitely going to have a great time studying and learning here.
What about your experience now?
So you mean challenges?
Yeah, or just experiences.
What are the challenges you've seen students face?
I think it's quite subjective, but sometimes it could be technical challenges. Like if you do not have any background in design or any type of like application system, you might have some challenges there. I've seen some students sort of like having problem with it, but it's something you can overcome with, like, you know, asking like you know, teachers and like other students for help and stuff. So it's something you can overcome, but maybe what I can advise here is, like, if you already know what you're interested in after enrolling in here, then it's worth looking at like what you might be doing here. Like that could help you.
I picked up another question here. Two people are asking about IoT, the Internet of Things. Certainly, particularly in the Master of Design, in our interaction design stream. Students do quite a lot of projects relating to IoT, the Internet of Things, particularly with tangible interface design, where you actually have something like where you need to interact with an object, perhaps remotely. And a very simple example of that type of thing is if you're looking after, this is not an object. This is actually a pet. Like you've seen, for example, people can monitor their pets from the office. So you've got some dogs at home, and you want to feed the dogs. You can even create a mechanism at home that through your smartphone you're actually feeding the dog or talking to the dog. So while we said it's about humans, it's obviously about animals as well, and also just engaging with objects as well. You know, it's just all over the place that digital technologies are sort of moving into everything around us. You know, you have things like you have smart surfaces. You know, you have smart walls. We have you know, holographic images. It just seems to be exploding all over the place, and we're constantly experimenting with all these new things in our studios. As Smriti said, you have the opportunity to experiment. Any more questions? Is it necessary to have a degree in a technology field? No, absolutely not. You know, some of the areas like psychology or education, we've even had students who've studied law before. We had a student who's done remarkably well. She's from China. She's just graduated. She studied law. She studied legal studies in China. Is actually a lawyer, but wanted to do something with a creative outlet. And actually, she's become a very, very competent content designer for interactive media.
Game development course.
We don't have a dedicated game development course per se, but all the skills that you might use here could be used as a stepping stone to get into the game industry. But it's not a dedicated game development course. It's not as specific. It's quite general, and we think that it's good to be general because the game industry, you might not get into the game industry straight away. You might as a stepping stone have to go into another allied industry and then ultimately find your way there.
The question about having a degree in the technology field, there's a follow-up there, like I'm pursuing my BTech. I presume that's...
I think somebody asked a question about BTech, Bachelor of Technology. That would be fine. I mean, it could certainly fit in if you have a background in technology. It's really, really very good. I mean, both Naohiro and myself, we spoke about art, design, and technology, and we spoke about engineering, and now mentioned how that design lies between engineering and art. So it's very relevant technology. For some more questions.
Do you have to know programming to do VR?
I'll let Nao answer that about VR.
So again, it depends on what you like to do at the end. VR is such a complex kind of technology, and also industry involves in sort of multi-layer here. So you might be doing like content creation that doesn't involve much with programming, but if you like to be more like, let's say you want to create a whole game system or VR entertainment system, then you might need to do a bit of programming there. especially when it comes to interaction, then it's a bit hard to get away with complete any type of programming language. But again, like with minimum level programming, like you can do a lot of VR work done. So again, it depends what you want to pursue.
If I can just add to what Nao was saying, like if you think of VR or virtual reality design, it's like the film industry. You know, you've got so many people involved in film production. You've got your costume department, you've got your people who have to do the storyboarding, you've got your cinematographers, you've got your audio engineers, and it's pretty much the same with virtual reality productions. So you could be a designer or a visualizer for virtual reality, or a user experience designer, and not do any programming. It's all about working in teams. So you could still find your position within that. There's another question which relates to virtual reality coming about the Oculus. It says, do we design for the Oculus? Yes, we have designed for the Oculus before and other platforms. HoloLens, we haven't quite started with HoloLens, but I know that we've got the HoloLens certainly on order. We're looking toward HoloLens as well. So we could have some more questions. Okay, what are the different courses available related to game?
Game development.
Yeah, so I think everything that we do, as I mentioned earlier, is related to game design, but it's not game design specific. It's not a game design course, but again, like we were talking about video production, game design involves a whole lot of people and a whole lot of disciplines that come together. So you'd be definitely learning skills which would help you getting into the games industry. And that you could certainly do in consultation with your lecturers, which you could ask, which specialization should I do? This is what I like doing. I like doing 3D modeling because 3D modeling is such a big part of gaming. Then we would point you in a particular direction. Or if you like the flow of the game, you like the storytelling part of the game, then maybe you'd focus more on the user experience of the game. So we're waiting for some more questions. Smriti.
Okay. Someone's finally right.
Smriti, yeah. That's VK. Yeah.
Yeah, Winnie, you can ask your question.
Maybe they're tapping it out.
Yeah.
Certainly not.
How was your experience?
How was my experience at Monash? And well, like I said, I do not come from a design background. So coming to Monash and studying at the Master of Design degree was a really great experience for me because, like I did mention before, it was intensive, it was challenging, but because I was given this freedom to explore on areas that I wanted, and I was able to collaborate with my professors, pick projects that were catering to my interests, to my skills and my strengths, that really gave me the ability to develop on my skills and exactly that I wanted. So is there something specific that you learned which you think is unique at Monash? Definitely just exactly what I was mentioning, because to be honest, when I did my research on the masters that I wanted to do, Monash University was one of the very few that gave me the course that I wanted. And what was so unique was exactly this collaboration, because design as an industry is based on collaboration, right? Whether it is with other designers, it is with people from other industries, it is with your team members, and just this ability to cater projects to my own interests was what was so great about the course. And what was unique was about Monash and about this degree was just how much time we spent on research and how much time we spent on concepts. So no matter what background you come from, I think because you spend a lot of time working out the details, working out, learning more about the industries, it allows you to come up with a solution that is actually workable. Talking about the example of the project with the hospital, where we developed an immersive working experience. Now, it was such a great learning project for me, because not only was I able to apply my design of skills, I learned so much about the health industry. I learned what it is waiting in a hospital room, you know, the details of what happens when you're in an emergency and you're right there. So it really expanded my knowledge, my perspective on not just designing for health, but also learning more about other industries. And I think that's what's so unique, because you collaborate with the outside world, with the actual industry, that your knowledge and your skills just completely broaden at the end of the degree. So I think it's a very wholesome experience, and you actually have to be here to experience it. And I think I should also add this, because Melbourne is just, you know, the design and the artistic hub of Monash, so of Australia, sorry. So being in Melbourne and studying at Monash together is just a very, very great experience for a creative person.
How is living in Melbourne?
Living in Melbourne is great. I love it. There's so much happening. Like I already mentioned, as a creative person, there's just so much for you to do, so much for you to explore outside of the university, and you have to be here to experience that.
So I come from Japan. Melbourne is quite different from where I'm from. So I don't know like how you feel, because like obviously like you're not from the same place where I am, but the food is different. The way people kind of work, live, they're quite different, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like you can sort of experience like different sort of like culture, and maybe you have different ways of thinking here. You can see like a lot more diverse people and culture here. Personally, I love the coffee here. You cannot really find that level of coffee in Japan. Food might be a little bit too much for me. It doesn't mean it's bad, but like a bit too, yeah, too filling. But it's tasty.
Well, there's a great Indian community, so many Indian restaurants, and we Indians, we love our coffee. So you're going to have an amazing coffee experience here.
The Indians love tea as well.
Well, we do love our coffee as well, tea and coffee, and any warm beverage.
Good question.
Okay, okay. In which industry do you see the most recruitments after doing Master of Design from Monash? I think that's so varied, really. I mean, there have been some students end up working in advertising agencies, some in design studios, some in the corporate areas, but a lot of our students go back to where they came from. So we only keep track of them for a while, and then they're out into the wild world. I had one student from India who's actually working in a design studio in Dubai. I had another student from Germany who went back to Germany and started his own design company. We've had students who actually have lived here. They work in web design companies. I can just think of one student from Nepal. He's actually working in a web design studio now, who remained here. Another girl from Vietnam who did exceptionally well, has worked in a design studio and now is an experienced designer. So it's varied. Next question, what kind of roles can one get in the corporate world? Well, that depends. You could be an in-house designer, you could be a design consultant, you could be the web designer, you could be a social media designer, you could be the motion graphics designer, you could be the graphic designer. And often nowadays, there's a big demand for user experience design. That's UX design. And that you'd find quite a lot in the corporate world. Are there campus recruitments after the course? I don't quite understand that.
So I think what you're trying to ask is placements. That's a very different concept that we have in India. Here we don't have campus placements, but there are multiple job fairs and workshops that you can attend to. There was actually a job fair last month, which I attended. We had experts from the industry come and talk to us, give us tips on how you can apply, the kind of companies you can apply to after you graduate. And a little tip about finding work here is that you need to be proactive. I am still pursuing my degree. I'm in my final semester, but I work part-time for a company as a graphic and multimedia designer. So that's how you actually put yourself out in the industry. And so when you do graduate, it gives you more work experience within the Australian market to go about and actually find work. So you make use of all, part-time work, the job fairs, industry workshops to find work.
That's very good. What about the projects coming from industry as well, Jeff?
Yeah, we
as a way for students to then connect back into industry.
We do have projects from industry. The projects tend to be quite a lot from community groups. We work quite closely with community groups, sometimes with charitable organizations. For instance, we've got a project coming up. It's actually with the Melbourne Zoo with endangered species in Victoria. And I've got a meeting next week with people from the Melbourne Zoo. So we tend to try and do a lot of projects that involve other entities than just within our faculty. A lot of our clients tend to be from the university as well. Like we said, we'll do a real project with the Department of Psychology, or for instance, we do real projects and we create exhibitions for the big library at Monash. We're doing a very, very big one about what Melbourne was like after World War I, that our students have been involved with. And these students, there was a group of 8 who worked on the project. They've actually been hired. They've now graduated, but they've been hired. They've been employed by the library to work on the project. We've also done projects with the Melbourne Library, where we've had projects happening there. But in terms of getting work, people always ask, they want to get into contact with companies. But you've got to remember, the most important thing also is having good work, being excellent at what you do. And if you're a very, very focused student, then the chances are you're going to get employment somewhere. If not in Australia, definitely globally. So it's more about what you can do. If you're good and you're focused and you're dedicated, you will find work, even if it's freelance work. There's another question from I think Danny. About so I can then choose my specialization like UI, UX, or VR. Well, those UI, UX, and VR would be part of interaction design mainly. So remember, we've got three main specializations: interaction design, multimedia design, and collaborative design. But they all have UI, UX, or VR in them. But if you want to do sort of major in UI, UX, and VR, then certainly I would choose interaction design.
Good.
All right. it seems like we've got five minutes, so please go for it.
While we wait, we should
While
go
we
back
wait.
to Jeff's picture. A snapshot of what it's like to be in the Master of Design program.
It looks a bit like a harem sort of
Yeah.
picture. I was just conscious of that. I thought maybe we should have had some other guys in there as well.
I have one. Go, Danny.
Go, Jen.
Oh, what is the salary? Oh, that's a great question.
Remove that part out of
That's a great question, Danny. It's very, very difficult to answer that. I mean, it depends, what field that you'll be employed in, and that depends on your skill base. I would say a starting designer's salary might be about 60,000 Australian dollars a year, something in that area. That's just sort of an educated guess, but we can't say for sure. It would really vary.
But with the degree that have a management, we've got 5, 10, 15 will be senior designers in their spaces.
Correct.
Yeah. So
experience will add.
I'm talking about that's at entry level.
Yes.
So the more experienced you are, like for example, if you've studied design before and then you do a 2-year master's program and you're going in as a consultant, you could be earning anything between 80 and 100K a year. So that's it all depends.
And for the entrepreneurial minded, they might build their own client base,
Yeah.
open their own studio. Right?
Well, we have a lot of students who are interested in startups. They do start their own little companies and work with other people. I have one student. Well, he's now a graduated student from Sri Lanka. He's actually started his own VR production company. He's trying to get off the ground. It's not only VR production; it's also VR and motion graphics and corporate videos. So yeah, there are instances where students get into have the startup mentality.
2 years to go on.
Yeah. So I think what we'd like to do is we'd like to thank you. There's somebody that says,
Hello.
Jatin says hello, hi. One last question. We're almost done. Okay, I think we'll have to say thank you now, and it was great talking to India, and just like to thank Nao and Smriti, and we hope to see you here one day.
If you've got any further questions, then you can ask the staff at Pac Asia.
Yeah, any further questions you could ask the staff at
Pac Asia.
At Pac Asia. I thought there was a different name to the company. That's what I didn't say.
Just maybe a wave and say goodbye or something.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Good morning.
It's morning.
Sorry.
Good morning.